So I will call this workshop to order. Oh, perfect timing.
2 hours early.
That was easy. On the agenda, before I call for a motion to adopt the agenda, we are going to we'd like to finish the action items, and then we will suspend the meeting and go into executive session and then come back and adjourn this meeting. So we will have an executive session added after the technology update at the bottom. That would be my only, and I don't know if I guess we have to change the agenda to say that, or that's just what we're gonna do.
So moved.
So moved. There you go. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. All right, discussion, action items. We have just a lot of discussion topics, not a lot of voting or anything we need to do. The first one is 2021 priorities for management implementation. We had our talk last week. I lost track. I had a chance to sit down with Steve and Neil and share with them our new meeting schedule and structure. So what we decided was that this would be our last workshop and that we would go to a 2-meeting-a-month schedule. And that's why this is on the agenda, to kind of talk through that process on getting the meeting set, the date set, and what the board book will look like, what we need each board meeting, and sort of that process to get with Neil and his team. And I know, Neil, you've had a chance to kind of maybe digest that a little bit since our last conversation.
I have. I owe you. I have some ideas. This is not a foreign concept, so there's a couple different strategies the boards can use. If you're gonna have 2 board meetings per month, we can either segment, but it gets a little harder when you try to do everything all at once. So I'll forward those to you, and then of course the board can decide if they like it, don't like it. But there are really financial and operational strategies to then you guys can actually focus on those business items.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll forward them to you today.
Yeah, one of the suggestions that he made was to maybe segment it to, just the general things that we have to approve, which are the contracts and the expense. And then maybe have, topics on one meeting and those basic items at the other meeting as we split it each month. Any discussion or concerns about
For
that?
example, like committee reports would be
Yes.
the second meeting, unless there's something more urgent.
Yes.
The financial reports, sort of thing,
But I would really like to use this to get serious about the financials. Just don't need to be in a 300-page packet. They should be front and center out there, and we can have a treasurer's report once a month. And we should have some freedom here, because we've talked about, do we do it with lags and crap like that? We can even do it every second meeting with the financials, and then have a big note at the bottom that you can find the detailed financials on the website at this exact place, so that it points and stuff like that. So this ought to be an excuse for us to get a lot of the superfluous stuff out of there, so that we have great detail on action items and stuff that are important to what the board cares about.
What I don't want to do is create extra work for management on creating 2 board books now a month.
Well, I'm hoping this actually
Yes.
streamlines it to lesser than it was before.
It will.
It really ought to just be action items. And sometimes I felt like we were creating work around action items because we only had one board meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that we discussed previously was that so much of the board book is just boilerplate that's being repeated from month to month to month to month. And if there's no new information, there's not a reason to put out all of that information. So I'd like to see a much slimmer board book for me.
and so what it may be also is just to some of the boilerplate things. And I know over the years in the management report have been various metrics. How many phone calls did we get? And not even, it's way before the KPIs. How many suggestions appeared in the suggestion box? How many, web hits and so forth. So a lot of that could not be part of a board book, but part of a dashboard. And so we may have dashboard metrics, or whatever you call it, that are for the general residential population. There'd be other things that are only appropriate for the board. And I don't know what the distinction would be, but we just can think about, go to the dashboard and look at the latest metrics. They may be up, certain metrics may be uploaded the first of the month. Some might be the 15th. I mean,
As long as they're all
but
updated on a timely
I think we can
basis.
start thinking a little more
So-
efficiently.
So how do we want to go about this? Do we want to kind of let Neil and Susanna noodle out? I mean, first of all, we need to set the dates. That's the first thing. So I'd like to kind of make sure that we're picking the dates for the rest, at least the next couple months. And I don't know, in December, we probably won't have 2 meetings in December because it's December. and-
Because it's December
Right, because it's
and it's
December.
after November.
Right, so, first thing I say, let's pick the meeting. Because it's December. So let's go ahead and look at the dates for the rest of the year. So the July, we already have the June board meeting, so that's next week. So the July board meetings then would be the 7th and the 14th and the 28th. Can someone clarify that?
So what do you're thinking the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday?
That's what I'm thinking.
Did you say Wednesdays?
Yes.
That's what we normally do, right? So the 14th and the 28th, right?
Why don't we just take the 2nd and 4th and
Okay.
just say that's what it's going to be, and sometimes
Just
it's
do it.
Take a
Zoom,
look
and
and see,
sometimes
are
you're
there
here in
any-
person, and we
Are there
take that.
any
But these will
conflicts?
continue to be in the evening, right?
Yeah, I thought we had clearly said these were going to be 6 to 8. We will have a different approach for residents, 2 hours of business, no workshop.
Yes.
And
then-
residents can comment in 2 different places. One is the open comment period, which is standard at our board meetings, and the other is with reference to any action item. So if item number 7 or number 6, if they want to weigh in on that, that's the time to weigh in only on that topic.
And those will continue to all be hybrid.
And we'll want to watch our time, because if we had 8 action items and we only have 2 hours, we just may need to cut conversation on certain things and not belabor it.
Okay, so let's go, let's say 2nd and 4th, comments throughout the meeting. Neil, Suzanne's not here with us today, so can we kind of put go ahead and start putting together those agendas for July and see where we fall and kind of get those out to the board, and then we can get comments back.
And that actually works, especially the 4th, because then that allows our treasurer the proper time to vet the previous month's financials or the 2-month, depending on when they
Yeah.
arrive. So that would almost automatically qualify your second board meeting of each month to be more financially focused.
Mhm.
And then the first one in the month would be maybe more operationally focused. And that actually aligns with kind of how I've structured things when I arrived, of trying to provide some level of separation between operations versus finance, lifestyle, parks, recs. So it could very easily just follow that suit.
Fine.
And we would like to have the committee chairs give a short update. We've kind of gotten away from that. We talked about, we'd really like the committee chairs to start coming to the meetings or sending someone in their stead.
But then stagger it so
Right.
committees can even have some rotational there.
Absolutely.
We should put a couple of articles in the Friday Flash. They could be brief things about the restructuring of the meeting structure.
Could the committee minutes be sent or emailed to us rather than put in the board packet after their meeting?
How are they accessible to the public?
Post on the website.
But you're asking for a copy of them sent to you directly, so you don't have to dig through them and find them on the website.
I would prefer, no, I think they
No,
ought to
I'm
be
just
on the
thinking of-
website.
I agree.
I would
Website-
like it-
website
I'm
is-
condensing the board packet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Whether
mean,
whether they have to be in the board packet, I don't think they have to be
They
in the
don't.
board packet, but I would like to see them get approved much faster than the waiting till the end of them. And this is not a criticism.
Oh.
This is when you do it once a month. I mean, if we have a meeting, we're ready to do one set this meeting and one set the next meeting, because I go to the
But
website
the
myself. for all
recreation
the
committee
stuff.
doesn't have to have their minutes approved by anybody.
Nope, I
So
agree.
you're just talking for informational.
I thought you were
Right,
talking board. Yeah,
informational,
no,
so
the
we-
other ones, just get them out there.
You know, email us and put them on the website.
Any other comments on that? We're gonna turn over to Neil and Suzanne and.
There goes 20 pages right there.
There you go. To have him noodle out the schedule. I see a hand up. Mr. Northridge, you have a hand up?
Yes, I just had a suggestion. Since you're looking at different formats for your meetings and so forth, maybe an opportunity to create a spreadsheet that would contain all the motions that have been approved. This way we could keep track, and you could keep track of where they stand. I thought the spreadsheet would contain things like a unique number associated with that particular approved motion and amendments, the specific language that was approved in the motion, and the status, where it's closed, open, in progress, or so forth, and also maybe a brief statement to say what's the current status of it. So very quickly you get a snapshot of all the motions that are out there and what the status is, so you can go back and refer to those. And I think it'd be good to, everybody in the community to be able to see that at a minimum. Maybe even if it doesn't go in the board book, maybe just put it out somewhere on the website. But I think that'd be helpful for at least the board, so you can keep track of what motions are out there, and then expect feedback from management or whoever is responsible for them. Maybe have a responsibility column to say who's responsible for that motion, that you get feedback from them. So that was just my suggestion for consideration, since you're considering the formulation of these meetings.
Thank you for your input, and Neil was aware of that as well. Okay. All right, any other comments on the new meeting schedule? We'll get everything put together. We'll get the agendas out. Any other comments?
Totally streamline the board book.
Are we
Yes.
going
Neil,
into
totally
orders?
empowered, streamline,
The second one. in
totally.
orders.
Yeah, we'll be doing, we're going, is there a conflict?
Well, and can I say, even the grids that are used to inspect the parks and things like that? I mean, if everything, I mean, because those are each 2 pages long. One is just a grid, check, 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 check. The other one is another just big blank sheet of paper. And if there is an issue, then it says, light bulbs out. And that takes 2 pages. I mean, I would suggest just a narrative, inspected so and such pool, everything's good.
Yep.
Give
Yep,
Neil all your,
Like-
give Neil all your ideas.
I think Neil's got his your marching orders, right, on that? You understand what we're heading
Less is
towards?
more.
I'm going to give you my recommendations based off of my 20+ years, and then the board will either say yay, nay, or we'll move forward with it.
Okay.
But
Thank you
I
very
think
much.
I'm pretty sure we're 90% there, just listening to all of you. I think we're all in the right direction.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. And it's something that could be tweaked as we go
Oh, yeah.
along.
Oh, yeah. I
Just to make it
fully
work.
anticipate that we're going to try this and see what works. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. So as long as everyone's good with that. All right. Number 2, pickleball adult sports update. Brian and I got a great update from Neil and some of the people he's been working for, and Steve. They have got their, we've already got our pre-construction approval to move forward to get the design, correct? And that is moving forward. They kind of updated us on where they are. They've got 3 different companies,
What they-
possibilities.
Yeah, what they've got is we had a meeting yesterday with Steve, Neil, Mike Jackson, Steve, Neil, Mike Jackson, and Steve Northridge.
Yep.
And basically it was to clear up any confusion that might exist. They've got a document, which I have to admit, was quite impressive. It's to get out there for pre-construction RFP type stuff. So what we did is yesterday was we said, charge, clear up any confusion. We're divorcing pickleball from the croquet stuff because there was confusion about, okay, one's ready and one's not ready. But if we're painfully honest in this conversation, pickleball is very complicated with what you're laying out, drainage and all kinds of issues. Croquet really involves getting the right kind of grass and a lot of stuff like that. What Diana and I said we would do is we would with Neil and the croquet group separately so that we can get the thing moving. So I think they being Neil and Steve and the team are ready to get out there, get it to 3 vendors who will give pre-RFP type things, can come back to us, and we can be ready then to start moving this towards costing the thing up properly.
Oh, good.
And we did ask Neil to go ahead and set up a meeting with the croquet people so we can get that clarified, where it's going to go, what their specifications are going to be. Okay, I kind of skipped over the task force resolution. We had submitted it to our attorney who has been out on vacation, but Mr. Anderson took a stab at it, right? Do
Yeah,
you
I took a
have-
stab at it.
Do you have it up on the screen? No?
It wasn't asked to be part of the agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
So I did take a stab at it.
you didn't. Okay,
Yeah, just based on prior resolutions.
okay. So can we get, you did or you didn't? I didn't.
I did take
Okay,
a stab and
that's
I
fine.
think I
Yeah.
just sent it to the 2 of you
Okay, so at this
as
point.
a,
we'll
as a
get this-
start, because Tom was supposed to be working on it
Yeah.
and then there was no action.
Yeah, because he's
He's on
out of the
vacation.
office. Yeah, so I would say let's get that
I'll circulate it to the, board.
circulate it, and then we'll get it onto the board agenda, and then we can get it approved. We've already asked them to put out a call for people who are interested to submit applications, since we know we're going to get the resolution approved, so we can also get applications.
So that if we are in agreement in concept, and if Tom or his team approves it, could that be on the board agenda for next week?
It can be.
Yeah.
For formal
I think-
approval.
I think
Yes.
so. We agreed it was going to read like the other ones. I didn't read your draft. I
It just-
apologize.
I
And
just
I'm
took a
sure it
couple
did.
of
I'm
old
sure
ones and-
Tom signing it as a formality. They're going to put out the call.
Yeah.
And for clarity, we said we want this project proceeding. We had the people
Yeah.
before. We will make it a formal task group that the board approves at the next board meeting or the first board meeting in July. But we had the meeting. we're proceeding.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
David, then-
didn't put the world in it. I just said 5 people and a board liaison.
That's what I think we said 5, because that's probably enough for this.
Because two otherwise is
Yeah.
confounding.
So they've already, we're gonna.
And to
publicize
work
it
in conjunction with
candidates.
Recreation Committee was part of our other dialogue.
Okay.
Who is the board liaison?
We haven't decided.
Unnamed.
Who is the
Unnamed.
board? We haven't decided that. Do we have
Didn't know
anyone who
we-
would like to be the liaison to pickleball?
Pickleball
Mhm.
or croquet?
Okay, this is pickleball.
The resolution was for both,
Oh, okay,
That's what I'm asking.
yeah.
unless you
we
need
for
to,
both.
unless you feel that there's a need to have 2.
No, I don't think we need,
I don't
a.
think
we
we
don't
need
need a
to.
croquet task force, do we?
God, no.
I don't-
I'll
No,
take
we
a
don't.
shot.
I don't think so. I don't think
The
so.
answer is no, we don't.
Okay. Celia would like to be the liaison for the task force.
Go for it, girlfriend.
Okay.
Well, and if,
Ask lots
if
of
Was that a
questions?
yes or what was that? What does this mean?
Well, I told her, like, I'm saying, what am I getting myself into?
She's sticking her toe in the water and wants to be.
I'm
And that's
gonna
fine.
try, I mean,
You want to do both of them or you want to do one of them, croquet and?
This is
do
a
they meet
short-lived
at
task
separate
force.
times?
Well, we don't even really know about the croquet
Yeah.
until we meet with
Right.
them once we got another meeting scheduled.
Yeah,
I
to
think
be, I mean, just to be fair, the folks that are passionate celebration croquet is how they self-reference. They have a plethora of information. The problem really comes down to, it almost seemed like we were trying to reverse engineer croquet into pickleball. The complexity of pickleball, as
Right.
Ryan and Diana have been involved with the land development, the construction, it's almost so complicated that croquet, it's not that croquet isn't important. It doesn't make sense to be together.
Right.
Whereas in the community, we have so many areas where croquet could be a quite, not easy, but a much easier transition and or modification
Yeah.
that to hold up one in lieu of the other or vice versa doesn't make sense to either the volunteers or the homeowner. So yeah, so a croquet on, I don't know if I say that, I'm not sure a task force is needed. That might be overkill for croquet.
Yeah.
For pickleball, it's going to be needed.
Yes.
I strongly recommend that we have 2 board liaisons. Let it be me and Celia,
There you go.
because I'm going to be in the middle of, from financial perspective, and I'm going to be in the middle of the politics because I already am.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just going to get stepped all over. So let me
Okay,
help
so
you.
let's.
No, I'm not trying to insult. I'm saying there's already another lane. So let's have both of us be.
That's fine,
Okay.
and then I'll learn from this.
Perfect.
process.
I'm
Do we need
happy.
to vote
So
on that, or we're taking, okay.
we'll
I think-
vote it when we adopt it. Just on
Well,
the
well,
final one, there'll be
okay.
two board liaisons.
Any other questions on, yes, Jackson, I'm sorry. You didn't.
I know we're all in an incredible rush to get this done, but could I just,
We're in a pickle.
could I just ask the simple question of when we expect to have
Yeah.
these first proposals from the 3 companies? I'd like to get some time.
What's a rough timeline?
That's all. I just like.
I say we, after the meeting that we had yesterday, the gentleman from Arnco Construction, who is assisting with the verbiage of
The
the,
design.
he had just has some minor edits from the volunteers from our meeting yesterday. And then once he does that, Tom Slayton will review it to make sure there's no pitfalls none of us have forecasted. That is not prohibiting us from moving forward. I actually have tentative meetings scheduled next week with the 3 companies that Arnco has suggested would be the experts in this. So we want each of those companies to have the same opportunity to understand the vision,
Right.
not just immediate, but long-term. And as soon as those meetings are over and they have the document, I would be more comfortable giving you a date, because in the document, it'll say a cutoff date. I think initially it said July 1st, which
Isn't gonna
it
happen.
probably is not going to happen. I think
So
if we,
once they get it in their hands, how many days are you gonna give them to create a bid?
I would say we ask 30 and then they have to explain why that
They
wouldn't
need
be
longer.
reasonable.
Okay.
And I would assume the only reason not reasonable is because there's going to be a permitting process that's going to have to be involved at some point. So I would aim for August 1st is what we'll ask, and they'll have to tell us why that's not possible.
So just to clarify, they have to permit before they can give up.
Well, no.
No.
Before you could build. So I think,
I'm just asking when the proposals would come to us. You're telling me. you
and
think
I
30
actually,
days after
the
they're submitted.
proposals, the way we discussed it yesterday, might even be a 2-step process.
Mhm.
Because we've talked about pickleball for B and for D, and we talked about a Y yesterday. We talked about it with Steve and stuff like that. You're going to get to the point where you're going to say B could, and I'm making this up now, B could be 8 courts, D could be 14 courts. B is going to be twice as expensive as D, and this is all made up because of drainage issues and land and stuff like that. We may come to a point where we tell them in these conversations with that Neil and whoever will be in, that, you know, we want to get to a point where, you know, you got one is, you can do both, and this one's going to be tremendously more expensive than this one. Do you want to make a decision to only quote on D only or B only? So the fire that we're trying to do is we're trying to get it so that we can keep moving this thing going rather versus having 6 or 8 weeks where what's happening. But now that we get these people moving, we want to get it down to the board gets some intelligent information. Okay, D only, B only, or they're both good alternatives. Because then when you get into the permitting and everything, he talked about, if you have to have soil surveyors and all these other people, you start spending twice as much money if you do both B and D. And we all know about the drainage issues. We've seen the pictures of the fields. We know we're building in a swamp and all that other kind of crap. So we're, you know, part of the conversation yesterday was we really want to think, if we're going to spend this money, we don't want to have all the water coming back on the courts and finding out the courts are flooded all the time. So there's a lot that's got to be thought about with engineers and
Training
soil
would be a big
specialists and
one.
stuff like that. But I don't, this process is far from over.
I got that.
And I don't want you to think otherwise. There's no hurry to rush it for an incorrect answer.
I'm pretty sure that Kevin and David and you and I have recurring nightmares about, what were those gopher things that, you know,
For tortoises.
No, those were tortoise. Those were.
whatever they were. But I mean, I understand that there are things that are going to get in the way. I'm just trying to figure out next steps. So what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is Arnco is preparing their documents. You're going to give them to 3 companies. Those 3 companies, we're going to suggest have 30 days to prepare a proposal and get it back to us. At which point the board will start making some decisions about which of those proposals and which of those lots and what direction we're going to go.
Probably we will make a decision between the 3 as to which one to start with. And then when we have that plan, there will probably be a point A, a point B, and maybe even a point C in the implementation there, so that we come down with, we've got the final plan for lot B or D that we're ready to bid out completely.
So there's 2 sets of bids, to clarify. One is for the design and the preparation, and then and our decision points. And the other is who is going to construct that.
That is
facility.
absolutely correct.
So to-
And what we're dealing
Yes.
with now is the complete design to make sure this works well.
So to the
So we
point
know what
of
we're gonna build.
when we hire the company to do the build, laying asphalt or whatever gets laid, or concrete or whatever the composite is, that's probably in the fall.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean,
Ballpark.
I think it's unrealistic to think we're going to be making a decision.
I mean, if
less
it's
than
all,
90
if
to
they're due
120
August 1st, we
days.
still have decision points.
Yeah. Jackson, how you just described that is honestly how it is in my head. But so when I say August 1st, by August 1st, this board should have tangible, realistic, competitive bid analysis between the 2 lots, so that you can intelligently and with your fiduciary responsibility to decide if you want to go one way, the other, or both. Once that decision is made, then it's really up to the government entities that how fast they're going to
I get
move.
that.
Yeah.
And would this be part of our budget discussion? I know it's a
Yes.
capital improvement,
Absolutely.
but I assume it's got to fit in somewhere into
It
that
will.
budget discussion. right?
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
the
yeah.
timing is.
So it's going to be reserve dollars. We got 1.8 million or so of reserve dollars. It'll be, and probably the build will be a next year build, and it'll be part of our discussion when we do the approval to spend 4, 6, 8 million, whatever it's going to be.
Okay. Any more questions about that? Celia? I'm
Choke,
sorry,
choke.
I can't hear that.
Did you say 4, 6 million?
400, 600, 800 million,
Yeah, we
maybe
know
a
that,
billion.
so we know what our budget is. Yes.
So if we, excuse me, if we go with lot D, as in dog,
Mhm.
and get all these proposals, is this just for pickleball? Because we know lot D is so large. Can't they like,
Well, no, it would only be a piece of it if we did.
Right,
So
I
you'll
know.
see a drawing.
can't they throw in what it would cost to get parking there also?
We can talk about that.
I mean,
But-
because that's a big issue down there. So if they do it all at once, maybe we'll get like a better deal, or I don't know.
No, I just think a lot of the conversation, while great to have, I think timeline aspects, expect to probably see our first document within the next 90 days. Apart from that, we'll have that conversation at that time
There you go.
for the
Yeah.
next actual bid.
Okay.
That summarizes.
Good. All right. Spring Lake landscaping update. Again, this is our commitment to the residents to follow up on their contract. I see we have one resident that at least on there to give us an update. Who's giving the update today? And who from management? Oh, there you go. There you are.
Hi.
What's going on in Spring Lake?
So, Exquisite's still continuing to mulch out there. They ran into another mulch shortage, so they're just waiting on another delivery to finish that up. Plants will be coming in. Turf is greening right up compared to our last update that we had a couple weeks back, with the rains and all that. So I just want to let the residents know out there that the water table is high. So with all these rains that are coming, we might see some wet grounds out there, and it has nothing to do with over irrigation or anything like that. It's just the high water table that we've known out there. And with the lovely rain and humidity, weeds come. So weeds will pop up overnight, and I know the crews are out there working hard on keeping the weeds down.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have an update? Do we have a spreadsheet with the residents? Did they evaluate it, score it?
Yeah,
Is it on there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think your packet. And I
Yeah.
think Brian Causey from Exquisite might be on this call too. So if he is
Yeah.
on there, I know he might want to put add a
There you
little
go. That's,
input.
I was getting it up on the screen there. Okay. So we're still all ones and twos. It's gone up from a 1.3 to a 1.8 average. So that's, I guess, a little bit better.
Mhm.
Any comments from the residents or from Exquisite that are on the call?
Before you go there, if I may.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciated the detail of this report. It had a different flavor than prior reports
Mhm.
because it points to some infrastructure issues, one of which, Tim, you just said, which wasn't in this report, but the high water table. We have continuing problems here systemically. Has nothing to do with the landscape company. It has to do with the construction and the setting, because we're talking about poor drainage. And we're talking about poor design. And I think that's important to know as we do this. The biggest concern that I saw in reading the report was weeds. I mean, I think that all the rain, it's like, boy, the weeds are hungry and they're happy. But that was my biggest concern with this.
If you drive around town, whether you look at service areas, homes or parks, everything is growing a foot a day. It's
Tell me
wet,
about
it's
it.
hot. I
Yeah.
mean,
Tell me about it. Can't keep up.
you used the word poor design, but I mean, at some point we got to acknowledge we're building in a swamp and you're going to get swamp. I mean,
And they're
I'm
dry.
assuming that Island Village is totally dry. We'll have none of these.
Yeah, that's
issues.
that's the other end. Yeah.
I
At
have a
least we're
name
not
for
doing
their
the
downtown.
landscaping out there. They're doing their own. Right? They're doing their own at Island Village. So, okay.
Yeah, swamp.
All right. Anything?
No.
that's good.
But I
No,
just, I
I
really
appreciate
appreciate
the- yeah.
whoever wrote, writing this, it just feels different this time because it paints a picture of what we're dealing with. And, I know the intent of the residents, we all want things to look good. And the intent of the board was, and with the residents engagement was good quality, low price. And what this report says is we could triple the price and have not a whole lot better result until we deal in some way with whatever the problems there are.
But I don't think I think that's what scares me is you can't deal with the issue of drainage and
Not a
water
lands-
levels and stuff like that. I mean, we got to be honest here. I
Well-
don't want to mislead people.
Well, we got to figure out how can we better deal with this situation? And I don't know what the answer is.
I think,
I rely on the experts on that.
did we have a comment from the residents or from Exquisite?
Yeah, this is Brian with Exquisite Lawn Care. How's everybody doing?
Good. Thank you so
Good.
much for joining us this
Good,
morning.
Brian.
No problem. First off, if you have any questions, I'd love to be able to address them for you. And then second off, I'll give you a quick update. It sounds like Mr. Anderson, hit the nail on the head, and it's not something just Exquisite has dealt with. It's every company that's been in there. One of the reasons that we had so much brown grass the last time is since January, we've been trying to get the property as dry as possible in anticipation of the rainy season. We're going to be talking about making the decision to turn off the irrigation at a lot of the residences, especially toward the end of Castile, I think the 1300 area. We've already turned off the Muse clock and the area that runs the fields back there by the pond because they're just oversaturated. I walked with Jim yesterday out there and was able to put my foot down with a little bit of pressure in some of the dirt areas, and we just see the water rise up. It's not ideal. It's better than where it was last year, just for the simple fact that there was actually standing water on the ground, and I think Tim can attest to that. So we're working on it. We're trying to make some strides there. I think, unless we said we want to run the irrigation all the time and we want to spend, I can't even put a number on it, how much it would be for just some kind of really high-tech drainage solution out there. We're trying to do the best we can by working on it with cutting back the irrigation as much as possible. And then having to, instead of, one of the challenges we have out there with irrigation is we have 152 irrigation clocks, not one irrigation clock. So we can't just run over and turn it off or that. It takes about 3 hours to turn off everyone's clock and about 3 hours to turn them all back on. And we're not at the liberty to be able, to turn the entire Spring Lake off because half of that, well, a little less than half is the townhomes. And I would really hate to detriment anything that New Leaf is trying to do with their property water-wise. So we can't just shut a water main off. We have to actually physically shut everyone's irrigation off. Other than that, next week we're going to make a very aggressive trimming of the entire property. And when I say aggressive, I just mean we're going to tackle trimming the entire property so that all the bushes are trimmed. The following week, we're going to make a very aggressive pass at weeds. Today, the entire property is being sprayed. We have a little break from the weather yesterday and today. Potentially tomorrow as well. That'll help us get some herbicide on the weeds out there. Other than that, if any of you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Any questions? I appreciate the update. I think that, we're heading in the right direction, and I appreciate the specifics that you're giving us. And it's interesting that they put it with multiple shutoffs.
152. I have never heard that.
So they put it for each resident.
Yeah, each home has its own.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they didn't consider.
Correct.
The contract was a joint contract when they installed the shutoffs. And
Like a
that's the
service.
first, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that. So thank you for sharing
No,
that.
and
It
it's
gives us some true insight.
No problem. And it's 152 clocks with the majority of them being two zones. One runs a netafim zone, which if you don't know what that is, it's just a brown drip line that's in the ground. And the other zone typically runs pop-up spray heads, which probably, I'll let you know since you're all here, probably in about the next 5 years, all of those pop-up spray heads are 4-inch spray heads. And with just the way growth and leveling and stuff like that sets in, you're probably over time going to be looking at switching those out as they break to 6-inch pop-ups for
All right,
better
we're good.
coverage of the turf.
We're going to move on. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, but that's good to know for budgeting purposes.
Yeah.
Those are going to need
Yeah,
replacement.
that spray head piece I
And
think is important is getting
yeah.
the reserve study.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, for that.
So I
we
hope
have
that note goes into the file for reserve study there.
reserve study. Okay,
Writing it
I got
down.
a thumbs up back there from management,
Thank
but
you.
that would be important to include. Yes, Kevin.
So just one question on this, because based on the conversation and the drainage and things like that, I wanted to go ahead and look up just the topography of the area to see if it's defined as a flood zone, near a flood zone, whatever the case may be. And we may know a little bit more when it comes to the insurance for the townhomes, because that would be a service area and we would have a better idea. Diana, you and I, where we are, just across the street from me is actually a flood zone.
But we're not.
I am not. And it has crept up, it's slowly coming closer to us. So there'll be a conversation soon. However, based on this map here, it actually looks like all of Spring Lake was built in an area that is a flood zone. So yes, it is a swamp and all of Celebration was. That's an area that I think it's going to forever be an uphill battle. So I just want to set realistic expectations when it comes to that
And
situation.
Again, that's very, I think we realized it, but to see the fact of it, no. Celia, one other comment, and then we'll go on.
So will any of this have anything to do with Island Village? Moving on with our landscaping and all
It's
of
called
that?
Island Village for a reason.
Yeah, not.
Yeah, I know, but are we going to
Not
be,
in this conversation,
When
but.
we go to the mainland, we're going to name their clubhouse wetlands.
okay.
We live in Florida. It's, well, Kevin, we're gonna move on to the next topic, and I'm gonna have Kevin look that up, because we're gonna talk about Island Village here in just a
Okay.
moment. Okay. All right, thank you very much. I'm gonna ask you guys to mute your phones because it's getting a little loud out there, the ones that are out there. Thank you. Patrick, you got it? Okay. All right, the next topic is discussion of proposed names for the Amenity Center at Island Village. I did forward this on to CJC because they would also like to be included in that. Really, the comment that came from Madame E. Holmes was, anyone got an issue with this name? And that was truly what the email said.
No, let's move on.
And it would be the landing at Island Village.
Literally, they sent it to me. I sent it to Diana. I said, hey, I don't have an opinion. I don't live here. I'm
See-
not a settler.
yes.
Yeah. So this is 100% on the board if you have extreme objections.
Let's
Dave,
be clear what the amenity center is.
Thank you.
It's the building right next to the pool
Yes.
that has workout equipment. It has maybe a couple meeting rooms, if I recall. There might be a full mirrored room like for ballet. If
Oh, goody.
this is 2 or 3
And
years
I have not
old,
seen, I have not seen the
but it's
final
next to
plans
the
yet. That's
pool.
what I
It's the
understand.
pool house.
Yes, so it would be, when you're going to the
Amenity
pool,
center
that's
sounds
what
like a town center, a
Yeah.
gathering point. The coffee pot is out.
Mhm.
Jackson's there with discussions with
No.
whatever.
So it would be like the clubhouse.
You're just next to me. I'll get to
No,
pick
it'd be
on you.
No.
like Heritage Hall.
It's like
Be-
Heritage.
Right, right.
Yeah. Not a
Before we
club- Not a
go,
clubhouse like Artisan.
before we go too in depth with it, number one, do we have any say?
I think
number-
if we said we hate the name, they would probably say,
What are your
okay.
suggestions?
Yeah, what are
And
suggestions?
2 is, the reality is, I mean, we look at Heritage Hall, which has multiple names, right? It's going to just turn into Island Village. When we talk about meetings,
It
we're going to
doesn't
say,
It's
it's
fine.
Island Village, their
It's fine.
pool.
Steve had a
So-
comment and then we're gonna move on because I don't think we have any huge
This needs
objections.
to get put on sales material quickly.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine.
think my comment was just in line with Kevin's. It is a CROA facility.
right.
And just to make sure that even if it's called the landing at Island Village, it's still understood that everybody within CROA can still utilize.
Yeah.
We
it's
can,
still-
we can rename it later.
We
Once,
could.
once it's built out, we can
Yeah, we
have the
would.
residents
It's
name
just,
it.
it's the name, well, and, okay, I'm fine. I won't make that comment,
Let's
but
move
okay.
on.
No one has a
Yeah,
problem.
it's
All right,
fine.
let's move on to number 5. And this is the CCFC Resident Security Access Update. We had asked several times to get an update where we can get into the community field complex and Jackson. You were gonna get in.
So let me update the board and the residents with where we are right now. The Recreation Committee meets on Monday, I believe. And
This Monday?
I think this
28, whatever.
coming Monday, yeah. Patrick's been working on some pricing for the gate
Gate, the security, right.
and what that would involve. But I want to frame it up this way for the board. There's going to be a cost either for internet and gate access or for a employee who is on site to handle
Monitor.
access. And regardless of which way we go, people will still be able to gain access if they want, even when everything's locked up, because it is not 100% secure facility. So I think the framework for the board should be, first, do we just want to make it open access and forget about all of this and just let people go in as they go in, and we've got park monitors and other people there, and forget this particular expense? Or do we want to go down the road of inviting expense for either internet and physical gates or employees, recognizing that it is not 100% solution? It may be a 75 or an 80% solution. And I think it seems to me that's the decision for the board to make. And then based on that direction, management can go forward and give us some information. Does that make sense? I'm trying to get us out of the weeds.
So
if we
open
can.
Access
access.
control or no access control?
Yeah, that's
Right?
really,
So-
yes.
Open access would be the gate, that black gate is open. You can go back, you can park, you can access all the fields.
Yeah, I think what Brian was asking for originally, I know this is going to stun you.
Is
but
that
I
for
may agree
everyone?
with you, Brian, that
Hold on.
just
Yeah.
let people go in. I'm not sure it's worth the expense and the difficulty to try and lock it off when we ultimately can't have it protected all the time.
Do we, but with the gate, there is, and when it's being open and closed, there is the appearance and.
Yeah,
the
it
illusion.
keeps the honest people out, which it always will, right? I mean, but if somebody wants to get in, this is not a secret how you get in.
It'll go
Okay.
under the net.
And there's a lot of ways into that facility. And so the question is,
Are
is
we
there an
throwing-
incremental cost to try and get that last extra percentage of coverage? Or do we just want to throw the gates open and say it's an amenity for everybody, come in, and when the gates are open, they're open, and when they're closed, and we're not going to worry about it beyond that?
So setting it up almost like a pool.
Yeah.
That has the operational hours of free play and so on. IDs get checked by monitors when they visit there on their
But
rounds.
they have to have a key
Now-
to get in.
For the pools, you have to have a key to get in.
Right.
I'm very conflicted on this because we have a real situation that's Lakeside and
Mhm.
we've learned directly in the center of town what happens when there isn't a gate and when there isn't, that monitor. So I really don't know the right direction. What we want to do and what the reality will be are two very far apart.
The reason I had the question is fair and your
Forward so
comment is
we can
correct.
hear you.
And the reason I had,
Microphone.
Microphone.
the reason,
He needs one on his.
For old
gonna need a
people.
lot.
yeah, for old
so we
people,
can-
the reason we had went with the pool approach is because we have cameras out there. We want to make sure they're good. I actually like expanding the internet because I think we're going to need it for camera coverage and everything to work well. And you have a record of at least who opened it, because totally open, I thought the same thing. You end up with the group out there and the problems that we had at Lakeside. At least if you could sit there and say you passed it and your name is Joe Smith and who are you letting in? You happen to be 16 years old and all your friends seem to be going back there. We got a parent to talk to or something like that. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. I don't mind spending a little money. I'm assuming once we have a card key access put out there, that's a sunk cost. It's done and it's there for the long term. I don't want an employee out there checking anything because I think that's just not good. We should have the park monitors drive by.
So you had a comment and then I have a comment. It looks like Tim has a comment too.
So when you're talking about opening it up, Jackson, you're talking about opening it up to the world?
Well, you couldn't stop anyone who wanted to go
It's
back
open,
there.
it's open.
Right.
It's open, it's open. Yeah,
So-
that's okay.
I thought we were supposed to be protecting our $4.5 million amenity. And I thought that was the discussion we had at the last workshop or meeting that we were going to get,
We're working on those things. I'm just trying to frame it up.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a bigger question here, and this conversation we're having is the right conversation.
right.
in my
But I
view.
think we need to have people know that you need to have a card to get into, and you're talking about, you use the word had past tense at Lakeside. There still is an issue.
I'm
Okay.
very aware it's have.
Okay, I misheard you, but I don't think it's a
Yeah,
good
I don't think
idea
it
just
likes
letting the
that
world
itself.
in.
Okay, Tim?
I don't know if anyone's thought about this or brought this up, so stop me if you have. But another thing about the fields, if you're just letting everyone in, like I'm fine with that or whatever, but resting of the fields too. I don't know if that's been thought of. And because the people that do rent that field are paying a premium dollar,
Mhm.
so make sure that the fields are good for them.
Because
too.
we don't
Right.
want to, we don't. When we've had trouble with that, even at Spring Park, where you're trying to maintain the field and they're out there playing on it because there's no security there.
Yeah.
There's no.
I think you all already know this. I just want to reiterate. I think there's two different discussions. Access control, and you took our clinical industry phrase. It's going to keep the honest people honest. But I think advancing the technology infrastructure is going to benefit that facility. And I don't think that's the same conversation. I just feel like as a board, and you know this, I'm not lecturing, creating rules that are impossible to enforce is just going to frustrate you guys, and it's going to just constantly get you barraged in town. So I think it's two different things. If we're enhancing technology because that's base infrastructure to eventually enhance and expand that amenity, that's awesome. If we're trying to get the 100% enforcement, I don't think, unless you have a bucket of money where you can have full-time staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just sometimes it's hard to create a rule that isn't enforceable because then the expectations from our homeowners, who we all serve, is going to be hard to manage.
So your recommendation, Neil, would be to explore the technology solution first.
I think if you explore the technology solution, the access control issues will almost back themselves into what your options will then be moving forward.
Okay. Yeah.
So long-term solution, yes, technology, getting the ID card readers working so we can actually see who's there and everything, so on. How is the contract when it comes to Lakeside if we were to open up this gate for the security company we use there to have them roving between Lakeside and CCFC?
We could ask for a quote from them.
It's
to
In
be
temporary,
between the
as
two.
a
It's our-
temporary
it's
solution.
our choice.
Yeah,
Until
we just
keep
change
the gates
number.
open with operational hours for rest for the grass and drainage. And once we get that tech solution figured out, then revisit the access.
It's no different than landscaping. You're just
Limited
paying for hours.
So you're saying, go ahead and open it now, have the security guard monitor it, circle out there until we get the electronics in place to monitor.
And if we have Verizon issues, then we can revisit. this
Well,
later.
and if I may, if we're talking about putting pickleball out there, we're talking about better parking, we're talking about other things. The technology solution out there should be top notch. And we should get whatever research we need done because that is wise for what we're talking about out there.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. I just want my personal opinion. The reason I've been pushing this is every single resident in this town is paying for those darn fields and paying real money. I want them to have access. I'm willing to have rules around it. But I mean, to me, it's a park at the end of the day. We've evolved and it's important that
Yes.
people have access, in my opinion.
David,
And just to clarify, when we talk about, if we talk about security and we're talking about access, we are talking about residents.
Correct.
We're talking about residents. We're talking about key card to enter, whether we have the technology now or not.
That's
Okay.
absolutely.
Residents. And I agree. That's what started this discussion a year ago.
Mhm.
Open up the facility for residents.
residents, okay,
Well, I think that gives Patrick some direction. I need to add one other piece to this, if I might.
okay, yeah.
I met yesterday with Jack McLaughlin from CCDD as the liaison from CROA. As you may know, CCDD has dumpster storage right now on B,
Population.
and they would like to rent 70 feet to the other side or 50 feet towards our fields. And we went out and walked the 50-foot, which is basically if you watch to see where the dumpsters line up from, if you're heading from the CCDD building towards our fields, at the end of the CCD parking lot, then they've got two dumpsters lengthwise, which are just under 50 feet, basically. You've got our black gate, which is at our property line with CCDD. CCCD is willing, I think, excuse me, to relocate our black fence, which would be part of the fence that we're talking about key access for, to move it 50 feet closer to our fields. And they would lease from us that first 50 feet and put protective walls, or not walls, but fencing up so that you don't see their
Decorative.
Yeah,
yes,
decorated.
their junk.
My only comment with that is that we don't, right now, know, we haven't 100% decided whether it's lot D or lot
Agreed.
B
I'm just
for
bringing to
pickleball,
you
so I think
what
it's a
they're
premature
asking us.
conversation. I think it's a premature conversation until we decide what we're going to do. And I don't know that we want, again, land is very precious. Until we have a use for that, it would definitely have to be a short-term situation, because at some point that'll be developed by us when we have the money and the plan in place.
I agree with it's a premature and it's a very different topic. But you bring up something that's important. Did you mention they're still there on our property?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like this board to have directions sent to the CCDD that if it is not removed within a certain amount of time, that is trespassing, and we will not be moving forward. This has been years.
I thought we
This has
actually
been
gave,
years.
Yeah,
I thought we actually
gave
gave
them
board
permission.
approval.
I'm sick of it, to be honest.
Well, no,
I thought we gave them permission.
I thought we gave board
to-
approval. I mean, we can raise the question, but I thought we had done that.
What's the lease? What is the?
Yeah, we
amount?
don't,
I thought-
I think it was a temporary,
Temporary.
but I think we didn't define
Yeah, and
temporary.
I don't want to get into an adverse possession problem. So
Yeah.
Kevin's right. I mean, there's a point at
needs to
which we
be-
have to say,
Okay,
we're going to do
Because,
something.
and here's why I'm going to say
They're
that.
trying
Yeah, they want
productively
more
to
than what
find
they-
a solution.
But here's why I wanted to say that. Do they still rent out the space behind and around their building to a landscape company? Because they did for a while,
Yeah, I don't know.
where they were profiting off of a rental
Okay.
space of land.
so, I mean, we have, and I'm all for working together, but I do think it's, temporary has gone
Years.
into a long time. So we probably need to investigate making it a permanent arrangement, not a permanent arrangement,
Well,
but
can
at
we
least a legal
Can we have
agreement.
management
Thank you.
float whatever we approved at a? I had. It's been
Yeah, I
a
don't
long
know.
time.
I thought it was just a temporary.
I don't remember. Whatever we approved to let them use our space at a board meeting, if we can pull that out of a set of minutes, and just refloat the set of minutes. And then I'm happy to revisit your topic.
Yeah, okay. Let's
And
get back.
We're going to 2 board meetings a month, so it's easy to.
So let's get back to the CCFC, because that's what we want to finalize that. So the decision has been made. Are we going to make the decision now to open up the gates now prior to installing the security system? Because that was a point that was raised.
And hire this.
And have our security company give us a quote on what the additional hours and coverage would cost to cover that for the hours that we need it covered.
I think that's how we can get some quick satisfaction
Mhm.
and then evaluate it probably.
So
in
that
a
would
few
be
What
weeks.
from-
do we have a motion to do that, to open it up now and get a quote on security? 'Cause
Would
I
that
think we
be
would
from
need a
7 to 10, 7 in the morning to 10 PM? Because
question.
that's when it's open. When do you want to put security there?
I think roving is.
Well, I think it'd be
Yeah.
roving. It'd be roving monitors or roving lakeside security.
We're going to have twice a month meetings.
Yes.
We don't have to resolve this today.
I'm fine with not
We have
resolving
several
if you
moving
are.
parts for investigation. How quickly can we get bids and do installation of the
Patrick's
Wi-Fi?
working on that and the
Yeah,
recreation.
and the
committee.
recreation piece.
I
explore the
want to
security
have something out of this conversation that has an action item attached to it. So
So I'd like a motion that Patrick or management will direct someone at management to come back and tell us what the heck do we need to do out there to get technology solution to where it needs to be.
Well,
And they
that's
can
already
coordinate with the
That is already
recreation.
working.
All
You
right.
don't need a motion for
Okay.
that. I think Diana's motion really is, and I'll make the motion that we open the gates consistent with our regular operating hours at this time.
I'll second that motion. Okay,
That means
any
effective
discussion?
immediately.
Any
As-
discussion?
As long as that can be connected to having that roving security set up.
I was gonna say,
Then
I
we're
was
good
thinking we
with it.
expand the motion to say, subject to the expansion of
The security.
our monitors who during the day driving by there and lakeside security going back and forth between
Will you want
lakeside
Yeah.
and
Lakeside and
Brian,
the fields? Would you adjust your?
my,
motion?
just real, before you do that, Jack, I'm sorry, my notes here, I would like to actually get feedback from the security company to see if they're willing to split and do roving, will there be any cost differential to CROA? If not, what would be the price increase for them to then be splitting time or maybe adding a few hours? Because again, like landscapers, I mean, we're paying for time
yeah,
and
but
bodies, and
'cause when
security is
we-
no different.
when we renewed the budget at the $43,000, we actually asked to have them driving around some and they had agreed to it back then because it was time. So
Okay.
I don't think they're going to care at all.
Okay.
I think they're just going to ask us to give directions. You can check with them. I'm happy.
Okay.
Okay,
And this also means that if the fields are sloppy, that they're not in use.
so that would mean that the management.
We have
will
to have signage and stuff
yeah,
like that. and The
management will have
monitors
to
will monitor that.
know what's open and closed and what they can actually use. And we'll have to
Yeah,
monitor that that's, that they're,
the two
that
grass
that's
fields right now are being reseeded and they're putting sand down to try and deal with some of the water and change the sloping. So right now, those two fields are completely at
And-
rest.
and management should have those closed off so no one goes into those
Just like
fields.
pool maintenance.
Right.
I actually think this is almost like spring training. We'll actually learn some lessons as we all.
Cindy, you had a comment and then we'll call for a
Mike, I
vote.
have a question. So those, do we still have the, celebration volunteer
Yes.
patrol people?
Yeah, you do. We just don't have a set schedule of when they patrol.
Well, why can't they drive during the day?
We would
Hit their-
have to get.
I mean,
with
because it looks like a police
Sal,
car.
Because if
right?
they're doing something at our direction, then it is our liability and
Mhm.
everything else. So we are entering a different phase of
Right.
insurance coverage
Well,
liability.
But you don't have
and
to
stuff
ask
like-
them to do anything other than drive.
Which
Ask
is
them
what
to
they
Oh,
already
and as
do.
soon as
Opening.
they drive by and they see, we've instructed them to drive by. If they have an accident, you could argue it was at our direction. And if they find something and they call management or the sheriff or whatever, it would be at our direction. I mean, that is,
I can't emphasize what Brian's saying any more strongly, that
Okay.
the board
So we
should
don't
not
use them
be.
anymore.
They're
More
account- they're
real.
accounting
We
They-
for it.
and
they
them are
don't-
different.
They are in our community, but they don't report to us. It's part of the
Oh, okay.
Osceola
All
County
right.
Sheriff.
if
It's
they
not
choose to
anything
drive
do
by,
with-
wonderful, but not at our direction.
Okay.
If they request to us, can
Okay.
we go visit CCFC? We
I
would
knew
say,
they
sure.
were
have
vetted
at
by
it,
the
knock your
sheriff,
socks off.
but I
Absolutely.
didn't
They
know
can,
that.
No.
I mean, they can drive
That's it.
anywhere in celebration they want to. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
never mind.
Call the vote.
Call the vote. Okay, so we're opening it up and getting additional hours. David?
No.
No. Jackson?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Celia?
I don't have a comfortable feeling opening it up with anybody going in there.
Okay, so that's
So
a
I'm
no.
gonna say no.
Kevin?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, motion passes. Okay, open it up. All right, next topic for conversation is, do we have Jessica? I see you, I see your face, so you're on there. ARC streamlining update by community standards. You're gonna update us on the progress that you made, and I think you even had some additional streamlining that you have come up with to make the ARC process more present, more friendly and faster.
Yes, thank you, Diana. I did have a workshop with the ARC coordinator as well, and we had they had already pre-approved some categories for us to look into further on this. They did on those categories give us very specific information as to what we could consider a standard approval to process in-house, and then what we would need to kick back to ARC for voting. And so those standards were made. They also suggested that we even look into doing some additional ones. They had mentioned address numbers, both house and garage, and flags and flag poles. They said that they would feel comfortable with that as well. So now my next step on that is to, some of these are already in the guidelines, but the idea is that I have to now make the design guidelines very specific as to what we would consider standard and for streamline approval in-house. So with roof and paint colors, they're already very clearly outlined. These are the colors approved for this architecture. This is the roof color you must have. All of that is very clearly done for us already. Mailbox is also very, very clear. There are some that I will have to go into the guidelines and edit them, have ARC approve them, and ultimately have you all approve them as the new standard for those.
Does the board have to approve them, or if ARC and management agree, does it get implemented?
Yeah, I actually, Jessica, when you say standard, I mean, we're talking about mechanisms that allow a pre-approved modification of the home, as long as when the project is finished, it is to the standards. If it's not then to the standards, then it becomes a violation situation, right? We're talking pre-approval categories.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and I guess the reason I'm asking, why does the board have to approve it? ARC is still in charge. ARC is streamlining the process. So as long as, going to your point, it meets with the standards and everything that ARC is responsible for, I don't think the board has to do anything. I mean, the board cares
If anything, it's a
that
blessing.
everything gets up to
I
speed and
think she
streamlined and
means,
works, but
I think she means the pre-approval standards, not each individual application.
But when.
yeah, well,
ARC,
but I
when you do that-
I don't care about the pre-approval standard. I want the streamlined process. ARC is still responsible when they pre-approve something, as I understand it, Jessica. ARC is still going to know it. If ARC wants to raise a question, they can. So all we're doing is having an enhanced ARC process that makes it more efficient for residents.
As long as it meets the standards.
Correct.
You're
That's
It's
the
already-
question I'm
that's already
asking. So I don't
approved,
want
yeah.
this waiting on board approval. I would rather say, Jessica, implement it.
Okay,
The only reason it would is if we were to alter the design guidelines to then be very clear as to what would be approved and what would not. I feel like for security doorbells, owners would go with what's the pre-approved standard if they knew what it was, and how will they know unless, I mean, obviously we would communicate that by management. I just thought it might be a good idea to be very clear in the design guidelines. When they see it, they would know in advance, these are probably the best models to pick because this will be a standard approval.
okay. I think as long as it meets the design guidelines, have at it and get it implemented.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of the ARC process. ARC's responsible. If you change something that has to come to the board, great. But otherwise, if it's more efficient and it's under ARC, do it. Implement it now.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think this is great. And that at some point, I'd like to hear how many applications, how this actually reduced the workload and how many applications it actually has reduced the process, the workflow for ARC. So.
We are excited to implement it. Yes, thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Next topic, new resident orientation and welcome events. We're coordinating with the foundation, and David Anderson has been the liaison and also spearheading this to do a new resident orientation welcome. So David, I'll turn it over to you.
So this came out of some of our earlier discussions, and I broached this at the end of the board meeting last month. So I initiated some conversations with Kathleen Scipio at the foundation and Cassandra Starks with CCDD. And a caution, just a caution, is that CCDD, based on their government status, may not be able to be an official co-sponsor, but
We would include
they can be
them.
involved. But so I'm floating this idea. I've written concepts that I shared yesterday. It has been, if you will, signed off by both Kathleen and Cassandra, again, without them talking with their respective boards. So this is the first board to which this is being placed. The idea is a monthly welcome, roughly 45 minutes. Again, Jackson has done this. I've co-taught the alphabet soup, which is 4 hours long with lifelong, and about a half dozen people each time. We have a few more new residents than that, and that's each time, which is once a year. So it's an idea of a welcome. It's not meant to be an end all. It's meant to be welcome. Here's generally who does what around here. It's an introduction to the alphabet soup. It would point them right to our new resident welcome packet, which is, JR, roughly a 20-page booklet, flip booklet online, 2016, 24, 21? Oh, the new welcome new member packet online?
Around 20 pages.
Around 20, yeah, okay. And so we would point them to that. I've already talked with the technology committee because about ways of enhancing that. For example, if someone wants to know more about covenants, go to the website or go somewhere and push covenants, and want to know about ARC approval. Here's a 3-minute video. We're not going to do all that in a welcome. It's like, here's where you go to get the information you want to get.
Great.
So the idea is a welcome. The content has not been flushed out. So I'm just floating that here to get your okay. There's a couple of, there may be some costs involved, but it would be minor. So if we had snacks, whatever is appropriate, we have to determine, is it lemonade or is it something else?
Wine. It's definitely wine.
Anyway, so that's the concept.
It's definitely wine.
I particularly like, I just want to comment, I particularly like that you're teaching them how to find the information themselves.
It's not answering everything.
Yeah, it's teaching them how to
That's
help
great.
themselves instead of relying on us. Kevin, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
So I really love everything that you're getting going on there. I think my one thing, the big elephant, is that there is an RFP going on right now, and something that we've seen a consistent message from every single candidate has been a new welcome type of an arrangement. So I just don't want to, in this situation, I love where it's going. I don't want it to be hindered or really thrown out until a decision is there. Which is coming really very, very, very soon. So I just want to keep that in mind. I would prefer not to enact this until that is figured, and then the conversation happens, whether it's CCMC or somebody else, of how to proceed.
Cindy?
I agree with Kevin. I mean, I understand, I very much agree that somehow we need to bring new residents into the fold as well as some of those that have been here for a while
Yeah.
because they don't know what's going on. Tim worked for a management company at one time, and they had an employee, and that was their response. They were the onboarding employees. So when a new resident came in, they sat down with that person who gave them their ID card, who explained about the community, blah, 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 blah. And that was their job. This person happened to be an employee of the management company as well as a resident. I almost think that might work better. Time is so at a premium these days with everybody, between work and kids and whatever. To get somebody to come for a 45-minute anything, it's almost, I know you want to keep it down, you don't want to ask them to spend 2 hours, but then on the other hand, it's like 45 minutes, and blow it
The one
off.
thing
So-
that with.
But I do
Island-
agree with
Yeah.
Kevin.
With
you know.
Island Village coming online, you're gonna have more concentrated amount of new people. So I think they could be appropriate, now, especially since we have more people, more new residents.
So I view this, I mean, I understand that management RFP and all that. Right now, we have a strong interest by the foundation to get this going. So they're not doing the RFP process. CDD is not doing the RFP process.
Foundation is welcome to do it. They
Mhm.
are a separate entity.
So I
and
am
if they'd
also
like-
willing to do that as I'm doing the RFP process to jumpstart this. But to Cindy's point, in our discussion with the foundation, with the incentive for someone doing 45 minutes to come live, and they don't have to come live because we would tape this and someone can look at it anytime. They can look at it 10 times. And it may be different actors at different points. But one of the incentives built in is you give someone what we have called, or Kathleen has called, a golden pass. They get one lifelong course. So they learn about lifelong learning. It's a $20 cost. Foundation would waive the $40 registration fee, do a one-time course, then they get more invested in the community. So that's the incentive to show up live. You don't show up live, you don't get the $20 tax.
Well, except that a lot of people work, so that would be of no benefit.
I'm just
to
going to
them.
back up for a minute. This is the foundation's project, that if the foundation is inviting you as a board member of CROA,
Yeah.
I will 100% support that and say, hey, you want to go for it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay.
Apart from that, I don't think this board should step forward with a new welcome arrangement until the RFP process is completed,
done August
essentially.
I agree.
10th.
I just,
think it's-
Well, this can't be done in July. The proposal was for August.
just remember though, that with the new contract, we still direct the process, so.
Correct, and that will then be
I mean, we
what
would
the
still direct-
foundation is doing
we'll
would
still
then be a
direct our
CROA
management.
activity.
We'll still direct our management company that we need a
We
welcome
will,
package, and
because
it's already.
That's been a
So
conversation
is
that I've had.
the
is it's
will
been
that we
passed.
wait until January?
I would like to wait to have the conversation with the management company that is selected, whether it's the incumbent or a future, to have them involved in the process.
Any other
I don't
comments
think
about
that has to wait till January. That conversation will probably start in September.
Yes.
And being honest.
If the foundation wants to do it, go for it, but
Well,
yeah.
it's a joint
It's a joint,
initiative.
yeah.
So I wouldn't put it on them.
What
This is
what
a
do they
joint
need from
initiative.
us? What does the foundation need from CROA?
That we approve this in concept and we would start building the content.
Well, there's dollars behind it for the food costs, that there's those moving parts, and that's why I'm saying we need to, it's premature.
The foundation is always looking for a source
They
for
need
money.
our-
At the end of the day,
That's
they're
the
looking for
reality of what it
resources
is.
from us. I know what they're
It's
looking for.
great, it's excellent.
They
but-
need our approval in concept. They have to go to their board and get approval.
Yeah.
And
So
CDD, again, I don't think we can.
In
we can't count on
In
them.
concept, we can argue about timing later. In concept, it is wonderful. I would actually love to know when the landing at Island Village is going to be done, because the right place to have the darn thing is, well, I hope
That's
it's
the
not
reality.
2 years, because it would actually be the perfect place to have this. Do it in the evening at 5:30 or 6. Do it from there 45 minutes to an hour. Have some wine and cheese and fruit.
Mattamy will support it.
And you will end up, because there's going to be
Yeah, I love
constant
Mattamy.
people coming, and you'll get people drive from here to go down to Island Village just to see it. I think it's a
Correct.
great idea. It's only a matter of timing and concept.
Well,
I would bless it from that perspective.
But I mean, I think we should also be able to incorporate getting their IDs and all that kind of stuff. So as an all inclusive kind of thing. So we would have to have some input. And personally, I would rather not put anything on our plates right now. At this, I mean, that involves any level of thought. And, like Kevin said, if the foundation wants to kind of get the ball rolling, maybe we tell them, geez, if you could think of a way to incorporate, so it'd be just a one-stop thing. We could have the clubs involved in town and stuff. I mean, I would just rather not have anything else that needs to go on a list of things to do right
In
now.
September, whether again, incumbent or different company is going to sit down with all of the entities in the community, September moving forward, the foundation, that could be their topic, one of their topics of conversation of, hey, this is something we've been working on. How do you fit into this?
And that
So-
fits in with the proposal written by the incumbent, which in there states that they're going to do a complete re-indoctrination with all local parties. So I mean,
We're
it
so
fits
close.
regardless of who it is.
This was a year ago, I would say, let's do it. But we're just so close to this time that it's.
So
You-
what's the
You can
best
tell
way?
the
of-
foundation, we agree and we'll work with them. It's just a matter, we want to get past the RFP and we're good to go. And if they got-
Yeah, I don't think we can wait for Island Village per se.
No,
Yeah,
No,
no,
literally,
I
literally,
actually-
it is, my understanding is the apartment piece, which is where the amenity is going, it's about 2 years out.
Yeah, it's
For
definitely
completion.
not, it's definitely not even ready
They aren't
to
even going to
yeah.
start for. quite
No,
a
although
while.
I do understand they're selling quite well. So we've got a lot of new residents coming. So, okay. So the agreement is, just to clarify, that we agree in concept and that we can move forward the foundation, but we're probably, as part of the RFP process, we'll work this into the incumbent or the new person.
We're gonna work it into
To
the
the-
priority scheme in early September.
Okay.
Okay.
Whoever the
Good.
winner is.
Okay. All right. And then, okay.
Okay,
Good.
good.
Good to move on. Okay. Number 8, new technology innovation lab is proposed by the technology committee. And the technology committee, and Brian can speak to this and David can speak to this as well, is looking for a place to call home, basically to set up a lab where they can test products, they can have all their computers, they can work on the Teams transition. And they found a place locally, which is not being used as an office space, and they're going to move in. So who
So
wants to
that
update us?
is the space, right? By the Jones room there. It used to be the old aquatics
Ah,
room.
My
Good
idea.
It was
suggestion,
Cindy's
Cindy.
idea, but we're not going to give her any credit. It wasn't her idea for anyone online. And they're
got laughs coming from
happy.
Jim out
It
there.
gives
Good
them a
job.
place to call home. You know, they can use their budget for other areas. They're rocking and rolling. I think they're happy.
Jim, go right
Jim's
ahead.
online.
Yeah, it's not just to give us a place to call home, it's to give the commitment that Celebration has to technology a place to be. It speaks to our commitment to technology. This is a place where we're going to work, but this is a place where we're going to invite the board in to look at things that we're working on. We have about 7 different channels of things that we're working on now, with some of those having multiple potential projects. And so, you know, we want to be able for you to consume that as you want, right? Not for us to push things into a 5 or 10 minute presentation at a workshop or a board meeting. And then beyond that, once we move from a proof of concept to you know, board acceptance and potentially approval, we want the residents to be able to see what's coming as well. We have learned from our history that surprises are not good. So that's what we want this to be. So it's not just a place for us to hang out. That we can use it for that. We will use it for that. We'll use it as a place to store equipment that we get from vendors in these proof of concepts in a secure location that is not a house of one of the committee members. So, you know, I encourage you to think of it bigger. It's not an office. We don't need an office. We can all work remotely. This is about something else. Okay.
Jim, I would appreciate that once we get going on this, that maybe we take a board field trip and you show us around.
Absolutely.
Okay? Double thumbs up.
And
Thank
Cindy
you.
and I are going to decorate it.
That's
Okay.
absolutely perfect.
All right.
just
Well, let's meet over at Artisan Club and we'll talk about that.
Okay. Well,
I'd love to have
I gotta
input
get an
on that.
invitation to go there.
All right,
Okay.
Patrick, rock and roll.
So there may be some quote unquote renovation with some soundproofing and security devices
Okay.
there.
And they have a budget.
And they have a budget.
They have a budget.
Climate-
You just need to. get
Climate
the quote.
control, access control,
Whatever- whatever's needed.
they're so far ahead of
Yeah.
my
Don't ask us.
comprehension that, I mean,
Which is
I've said
great.
my opinion.
Okay.
One more thing, just in terms of timing. I worked with Patrick. There is a challenge for storage for the event committee. So as opposed to pushing forward in June, we're going to pause and wait till after the July 4th event or events, so that they don't have to rush around to figure out something. And then I think the next event is 3 or 4 months after that. So that gives them time to kind of figure out alternate places of storage.
Very good. Thank you for letting us know that. I appreciate that. I look forward to seeing it all put together. I think that's a wonderful use. Very
Thank you.
good.
Thanks, everybody.
right.
I appreciate everyone's input on this discussion and email and everything. And sorry, Brian, I will give Cindy credit because it's in the email, right? Put it in
Thank
there.
you.
She's been a
Very well done.
paragraph on it. I think she gets it.
Thank you.
Yay.
All right. Thank you very much. So
Okay.
as I said at the beginning of this meeting, we are going to pause this meeting. As part of that, the Zoom connection will be discontinued. The recording will be disconnected. Yes.
Can I add one 30-second item?
Oh, Brian would like to add a 30-second item before we go into executive session.
This is the billing statement. And on the bottom here, it talks about VMS and you can sign on to your account. and I couldn't do it. So I sent the board an email. Most board members can't get in. So you're going to end up with a bunch of residents getting this. So whoever the right person is at management, we just need to make sure that what we've told them is down here, there's a sign in, it works, or otherwise I fear you're going to get inundated with how the heck do I get in my account? So that's just whoever the right person is.
So I got in, and all
You're
I
the
got-
only board member who could.
And all I got was my street address.
Yeah.
That's
So
all
I
that
got-
showed
So
up,
we put
nothing
it, we
else.
put it on the bottom of the
No
statement.
names, that's it.
I just,
Because I
yeah.
can run away.
and I just read my statement and then I found it. So I just am trying to be proactive.
I
That's all I'm
couldn't even
asking.
reset I could
That's
not
my
reset the
concern.
password.
Okay, yeah,
It's
that's
something I can remember.
I do think, and you know, just to add my 30 seconds, I didn't even see it on the statement. I look at the total, I see it's the same total, I tear off the stub, I pay the bill and I throw the rest away. So I didn't even see it. So we need a better form of communication if we're going to expect our residents, because I'm sure.
Once it works.
Yeah, once it works, maybe we won't have a lot of people. We need more of a communication.
You want my
vehicle.
ID and see if it comes up with your street?
Okay, not paying your HOA.
As long as
Yeah,
your
that
bill,
goes with
as
it.
my
That
bill
goes-
goes to you, I'm
that
happy.
goes
Mine
with
are
it.
already paid. Okay, so, all right, back to the other comment. Did you?
No,
have
I was just gonna say, I'm aware that the board needs to enter into an executive session within this regularly noticed meeting. Do you need management to return when you
we just
reconvene and
adjourn.
adjourn the
We'll,
formal?
we'll just adjourn at the end of the
Okay.
executive session
Okay.
and there won't be
So
any
we're
other business
adjourning
done.
the workshop.
Do we even need
We are
Zoom
going-
on or can't we shut Zoom?
No,
down?
we're gonna Zoom is shut down because the only reason we need Zoom if we had someone, a board member remotely, which we do
Yeah.
not, everyone's here. So Zoom will be shut down. Of course, no recording. We'll go into an executive session. At the end of that, we will adjourn this workshop and be done. And no, we don't need management to return.
All right,
We'll let
perfect.
you know if we need you.
Thank you so much.
after.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all the residents for
guys.
joining us. We appreciate it.